So, can reconnective healing help us recognize our bad habits and self-destructive thoughts?
Self-destructive thoughts? Who has those? Who has bad habits?
I don't really know. The thing about this is that reconnective healing helps you become better. I'm using that word. It's an interesting word because it's not that it helps you recognize bad habits or self-destructive thoughts. More so, it allows you to recognize that you may no longer be having them.
Isn't that's such a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that even happen? That's the curious and most, I'm going to say, amazing part of the reconnective healing intelligence. It's like it swoops in, as frequencies do. Frequencies are really very engaging, and we know this about the field. We know this about how every cell in our body is responsive to frequency. So this intelligence reaches to us. The different aspect to it is that it's bypassing, I'm going to say, the emotional intelligence of our mind. And so whether you have very, I'm going to say, developed emotional intelligence or a tremendous loss or lack of emotional intelligence, it's not engaging with us at that intersection. It bypasses and it seems to fill us with its presence. So, like you just pointed out so perfectly.
In filling us with its presence, we find that we are acting differently. Now, the funny thing is that we can become very used to bad habits, mm-hmm. and they feel fine to us. Now, with that, part of the change that we see once we interact with reconnective healing is that other people interact with us differently. They're often nicer, warmer, friendlier. There's less stress, there's less tension, and that becomes maybe a clue, an indicator to look inside and say, could it really be them? These multiple people interacting with me differently, or has something about me changed? What might that be? And that becomes a little bit of cause for introspection.
And I think that part about letting go in the reconnective healing expression is that something changes in our flow, and there just seems to be an innate kind of certainty in chaos, or an allowing that is ever present. Sometimes we don't even know how that could be. You often hear people say, as I learn how to be in awareness of the reconnective healing energy, light, and information, meaning I'm being, in a very early sense of it, being taught how to feel it and sort of find it. After a little interaction, I mean, really, there are no steps and procedures in this approach. So it's almost as if this wind, this expression comes over us.
And it's funny, it's often described as a wind or a breeze, a gentle, cool wind.
Isn't
or a breeze.
So, we hear it so often. But that mood that we happen to be in, and we find this even when we're facilitating sessions. We have a pretty crazy busy life. So it's not unusual that some midday moment might be filled with tension. Like I said, of course, there's never any self-destructive thoughts around here. I'm going to kill you.
I'm going to hide the knives. No, we really don't have a lot of that.
But there is a innate calm that flows in like a summer night's breeze or some intervention. And while it is an invisible force, while it is an intelligence that knows us so well that every cell in our body begins to respond, we seem to, I'm going to just say, slide into a better state. It's not even a thinking state. It's almost like an entire embodied state when you're just released from anything and everything past, present, and future, right?
Right.
It's a very odd claiming of our presence.
And so there's nothing we need to do to activate the reconnective healing frequencies to let go of certain habits. It's really that we become more attuned with, in tune with, you could even say maybe activated a higher level of our awareness, and our awareness to our receptivity. And in that sort of a pause, kind of a pause to notice, whether it's to notice feeling, kinesthetic sensation, or just how we may emotionally or on other levels be feeling balance-wise or inside. In that awareness is when we suddenly notice not just the change in us, but we start to notice that there's more room, there's more space,
freedom,
or spaciousness and freedom, and we might not always think to attribute it to some of the things we've let go of.
And I guess one might say, well, how do you do it? We hear that all the time, but show me, how do you do this? And that's where we often have to kind of readjust our thinking mind to this kind of an approach, because it isn't a do it kind of effort. There's not an efforting in it. And we don't have to, I'm actually going to even say this. Sometimes there's even more awareness when we accelerate what might be considered the bad mood or the bad habit to such a degree that we're inviting it in, allowing it to be there as the frequencies or the intelligence of these frequencies starts to breeze or blow or attach to us. And sometimes the contrast is almost startling.
So let's look at this. When we use the word accelerate it by inviting it in, it's not that we actually accelerate the bad mood as much as we try to. Now the distinction is inviting the bad energy or the bad mood or the bad feelings in. It's really, the way I do it is I sort of take it as a challenge. All right, God, how much worse can this get? How much more of this discomfort can I feel? Just for a moment, bring it on. Can it really be more? Can I really be angrier? And the funniest thing about it is, the more I invite that in, it turns out not to accelerate it at all. It actually seems to dissipate, to really disappear, because what the upset is about a lot of the time is our attempt to resist it. Now, I'm explaining a little bit about my experience, my interaction with it. I do want to say, when we ask the question of how does it do this and how does it do that and how can we do that, to be honest, with a how question, I really have to say we don't really know, but we can explore potentials such as this and ways in which we find that interaction really does take place and different experiences with it. So we do know that much.
And while it might seem to the mind counterintuitive not to reframe something so that we can think a better thought in order to feel a better feeling, because somehow these frequencies again are sort of bypassing that aspect of our emotional intelligence. While it might seem upside down, really, this isn't the way to navigate into the experience itself. So not resisting the negative emotion, allowing the negative emotion or the quote-unquote bad habit. Maybe it's just a feeling of sort of obsessive compulsive behavior, letting it be there, and simultaneously allowing ourselves to receive these frequencies. They have a recognizable characteristic, so you don't have to imagine them. They're quite tangible,
right?
So you know that you're interacting with them. There's no am I or am I not? So I think that is one of the best initial experiments in beginning to play around with how to recognize where reconnective healing can benefit us around destructive thoughts, or again, what we might perceive as our bad habits.
Right. So the awareness of them
Yes.
in itself is a help. The inviting them in and playing my little challenge game, I find helps when I really look for how much worse
Yes.
can this be. It almost strikes me funny. It's in the smile and the laughter that things begin
Yes.
to dissipate.
And the play, often because there's very little that we have to learn. So because there's no technique, you're really beginning to refamiliarize yourself with a play, just like in meditation. Meditation teaches us to breathe. Reconnective healing is here to teach us how to receive.
So the funny thing about going through and trying to reprogram ourselves or our minds or re-experience things or analyze the situation or look at it this way and that way and the other is really the realm of psychology
And neuroscience.
and in many ways older psychology and some neuroscience too. But the funny thing is, the interesting thing is about it is that it takes work and it takes time, and it's not that there aren't good things that come with work. It's not like there aren't good things that come with time. But the interesting thing about reconnective healing is it tends to not require work because it happens outside of that thinking mind. And it also tends to not require time because it happens outside of time and space. Now, you might look at certain things that may not change and go, it didn't work. But that doesn't ever really mean that it didn't work. What it means is it didn't make the change that we thought needed to happen. But oftentimes it's made other changes that it realized was bigger, more important at that timing, and maybe even in order to do it. In other words, we might be so excited about wanting to change the exterior of our house that maybe we slightly neglected something that we didn't see in the foundation. Thank goodness the reconnective healing frequencies recognizes whether it requires the foundation first. And we say, well, the house still looks the same. Well, maybe it does, but it's a whole lot better now. And now it's ready for that coat of paint you might be looking at.
Oh, I love that analogy. I think that's just perfect. Hope we answered that question.